Hi, welcome. In this video, we're going to start talking about classes and objects, and we're going to use IOStreams to do this introduction. So let's get started. So I'm going to download the notes here and talk about the notes. Then we're going to do some practice. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about your programming assignment and how that's related. All right, so in C++, C++ has this ability to handle objects. So what is an object? An object is an instance of a class. So we've already learned about structs. Let me just show you this very quickly. We've already learned about structs. So in program 3, you guys used a struct. And hopefully you use structs in your other class. So this right here is a struct. This is allows you to put different types of data into one special package, which is called a structure. And when you declare a structure, you declare an instance of your structure. So when you declare order record, my record, or order record, current record, you're declaring an instance of an order record. And when you do that, you get all of this data associated with it. Well, in C, in C++, there's another thing called a class. And a class is very similar to a struct. And as a matter of fact, in your program 5, we are actually going to be using in program 5, we're actually going to be using a class like a struct. So you're going to be using your first class in here, only instead of using a struct here, the name of the class is number game. So we could have just put struct number game and done the same thing, and it would do the same thing, but we're going to use class this time. Now the difference between a class and a struct at this level is just that in a struct, everything is public. And what public means is that all of the data that's in your struct is available to your program as long as you declare an instance of your struct and use the dot operator to access the variables. With a class, by default, nothing is available. So by class, everything is private. By default, everything in a class is private. So you need to put this keyword public here to make all of your member variables available. So we are going to definitely learn a lot more about this, and this is just an introduction to it. But just what we're doing right here in program 5 is we are using a class as if it were a struct. And then through our next assignments, we're going to be adding on to it. The other thing that a class has, in addition to having a bunch of variables in it or a bunch of data, you can add functions. So you can add your own member functions to your class to manipulate your own data in your class. And that's what we want to get to. That's like the goal of this class, is to be able to implement instances of classes, which they're not called instances then, they're called objects. We want to implement objects of classes with their own data and with their own member functions. So that's just a little introduction here. So if we go back to our notes, the way that we're going to get introduced to this concept is by objects that are made in another library. They're not going to be our own classes. We are going to write our own classes, but we're going to be introduced to the concept through streams. So there's two types of streams that we are going to use for this concept. So streams are just flows of data. The two types of streams that we're going to be using for this concept are input and output streams, that is reading from the keyboard and writing to the screen, and file streams, that is reading from input files and writing to output files. So the thing about it is that there's this library called IOStream. And in IOStream, there are two classes. There's iStream for input and OStream for output. And CIN is an object of iStream, and COUT is an object of OStream. So the thing that makes CIN and COUT unique is that you don't have to actually declare these objects, because these objects are already declared for you. As long as you include IOStream and standard namespace, you can use CIN and COUT throughout your program, and those are already objects that exist of the iStream and the OStream classes. When you're using files, though, you have to include FStream. And when you include FStream, you actually need to declare your own objects. So if you want to read from a file, you're going to use the class IFStream, which is part of FStream, and you're going to declare your own object of type IFStream. And in this case, I'm declaring it to be in. If you want to use write to output files, you need to declare your own object called whatever you want. This is the name I made up, called out, because it's kind of similar to CIN and COUT, so it's easier to remember. And once you have declared these objects, there are a lot of member functions that are shared between CIN, COUT, and in and out. Some member functions, not that many. So let me repeat what I just said. In C++, you can create classes. You can create your own classes, or you can use objects from classes that have already been created. So in introduction to this concept, we are going to use objects that are used to stream data into and out of your program. The two different streams that we're going to cover, the first one is IOStream. IOStream is for input from the keyboard and output onto the screen. CIN is an object that is part of in IOStream. The class is called iStream, and the name of the object is CIN. For COUT, it's the same thing, and COUT is also an object that is used to print data onto the screen. Another streaming classes that we can use are part of FStream. That's for file streaming. Class IFStream is a class that's part of FStream that is used for reading data from an input file. This declaration right here is me declaring an object called in of type IFStream. Here I am declaring an object called out that is in the class OFStream. And once you declare these objects, you have access to the member functions that are available in these libraries. These member functions have already been implemented for you. So when I was showing you your program 5, where you we have our own number game class, eventually we're going to make our own member functions that we're going to implement and access through the dot operator. Here you're going to access these member functions that have already been implemented. It's just the same way that you use library functions, the way that you learned how to use many library functions, only the way C++ has set it up, C++ has classes, and you access the member functions of your objects of those classes by using the dot operator. So here's an example. This is an object of the IFStream class. You use the dot operator to access the function called fail. This function called fail is available in the library of IFStream. So this is how you can check if your file has opened correctly. Another function that is available in that library, this is my object of type IFStream. I use the dot operator, and this is a function that is available for me, and that is to open a file. And then, of course, I pass the name of the file or the path to the file. Out also has access to a function called open, and it works the same way. Once I have declared these objects, they actually work in the same, very similar to the way that COUT and CIN work. They work by, here, instead of putting CIN here to read from the keyboard, you just put this new object that I declared and read the numbers from the file, as long as the file connected correctly. And to put into an output file, you use out instead of cout. And close is also a member function associated with those classes. So just as a review, an object is a variable that has functions as well as data. So that's the biggest difference between a struct and a class. Structs, you don't put functions. Classes, you put functions. And the first classes that we are introduced to in this course are the streams, the input and output stream for the keyboard and the screen, and the file input and output. So this is just review what a member function is. A member function is a function that's associated with an object, and you access that member function by using the dot operator. So once you've declared an object of type ifstream, then you can use the dot operator to access any of the member functions that are associated with that object. So we've already actually been doing that because we were using the magic formula. If you remember, we used the magic formula on our, I think I have it down here somewhere. If not, we can go back here to an older module where we started out. And let's see if I have the magic formula in here. Right, so here, cout, we were already using, so cout is an object. It's part of the OStream class. The thing like I said, you don't have to declare objects. You don't have to declare OStream cout because it's already, it's kind of it's special and already done for you. But as long as you include the library, you do have access to these member functions. So we were already doing it when we did our magic formula. We were going cout, which is an object, using the dot operator to access this function setf. And then this function is an overloaded function that, that has different things that you can pass it, like whether you want to be fixed or not in E notation, whether you want to show your decimal point or not, and another function that is member function that is part of cout. Part of that class, cout is the object of the class, OStream is precision. So we've already been using the dot operator to access member functions, and now in this chapter we are just explaining what that is. Oh, here. So here we are using the magic formula. Instead of using it with cout, we're using it with our OFstream class object out. So here's the magic formula, and you can see that we're accessing those member functions using the dot operator. Also in this little sample right here, we are getting the file name from the user. You can have the user enter the file name. You declare the file name as a character array, large enough to store that file name. We're not covering arrays yet in this class, but hopefully you've had some array experience in your introductory course. If you want to append, you have to make sure it's the exact same file name, but you can use this ios append. That means to add data onto a file add more data onto a file that already has some data in it. And I have some samples of that for you to try. I have another class here that this is just different things that you can set for your output. There's one more class here that I just wanted to talk a little bit about is iomanip. It has a lot of things in it for manipulating your output and setting the precision. So here, iomanip right here, you can, as long as you include iomanip, then you can set the precision. The thing that's nice about this is you can do it on each line, and it just gets included in your cout. And here's another example down here. I'll go back to that in a second of using the manipulator. Here you can set W here, set the width of your and format your output. So I have an example there, and I think it'll be nicer to look at the code than to to actually put in the compiler and try things. So we're going to do that in the next video. One more thing I wanted to talk about here is end of file. You can read from your file until you find the end of the file. We already did that in one of your program. I think that we did that in one of your programs. And then there's some other things about getting characters. So if you are reading from the keyboard and you want to, cin will automatically ignore white space. Like if you hit enter, then if you needed to have a space, you could use get. So, and if you needed to put space on, you can use put. So cin, or also part of the file streams, they do have a function called get, and they do have cout has a function called put. Or if you're using file streams, it would be in and out. And so get means you want to get one single character from the keyboard, and put means to put one single character onto the screen. Now, the reason that you would care about using this, I think, only right now would be just in case you wanted to, you cared about dealing with white space. So, because cin is going to automatically skip any kind of white space. If you wanted to get an entire line of input that has white space included, now if you have strings, you can't do white space because it doesn't work really well with cin. So if you wanted to get a whole sentence, there is a function called getLine. We're going to do a lot more on this later when we get to strings and stuff. So I just wanted to put this out there that mainly I just wanted to show that there are, some other member functions associated with these classes. All right, so I'm going to end this video now, and in the next video, we're going to put some code in the compiler.